These leaked jail calls might prove what no one wanted to believe. Was Young Thug the snitch all along? Everyone called Ghana a snitch, but new leaks suggest Young Thug might have been working with the cops first. What's the truth? Every new leaked call is destroying Young Thug's career. Some even say he built his own downfall. When Ghana admitted YSL was a gang, people said he betrayed Thug, but what if the evidence against Thug is even worse? Leaked calls, broken friendships, snitching accusations. Is Young Thug still the king of hip-hop, or is he sinking his own empire? The drama around Young Thug and the YSL case has only grown louder after several leaked jail calls hit the internet. In these recordings, Thug points the finger at Ghana, claiming Ghana's statements in court turned their charges into a full RICO case. According to Thug, the moment Ghana admitted YSL was a gang, prosecutors had all they needed to paint the entire crew as criminals. But Mondo, a founding member of YSL, quickly fired back. He accused Thug of being the first one to talk to the police and suggested that Thug himself was the reason the RICO case even started. Mondo argued that Thug had been cooperating with law enforcement long before anyone else, even before high-profile incidents like the Lil Wayne tour bus shooting. This back and forth put the spotlight on Thug's loyalty. In one call, Thug claimed he didn't know anyone in the case who had committed crimes, but critics said that kind of statement only made things worse, because saying YSL members were tied to illegal activity is exactly what strengthens a RICO case. The situation only got messier when another call leaked, showing Thug making jokes about Glorilla's looks. After fans dragged him online, Glorilla herself clapped back, reminding people that Thug used to call her asking personal questions. Thug later apologized publicly, blaming stress and frustration in jail. Still, not everyone is letting him off easy. Charleston White, a controversial internet figure, has been relentless. He claims Thug will eventually break under the pressure and snitch to get out of jail. Charleston even went as far as saying it's his personal mission to end Thug's rap career for good. Meanwhile, Pee Wee Roscoe, the man many believe Thug allegedly snitched on, spoke out too. Roscoe said he wasn't upset with Thug, describing his own time in prison as something he handled without betraying anyone. Some fans think Roscoe's defense of Thug was genuine, while others believe Thug might have paid him to keep quiet. But the story didn't stop there. Another leak surfaced of Thug speaking about Lil Durk. On the call, Thug complained that Durk didn't clear one of their songs for release and hinted at knowing things about Durk's team. This sparked fresh headlines, with Durk's associates mocking Thug for gossiping like a girl on jail phones. At this point, the situation feels like a storm Thug can't escape. Every leak adds another layer: accusations of snitching, broken friendships, public apologies, and beef spilling into new directions. With the streets talking, critics circling, and prosecutors holding onto every word, one thing is clear: these leaked calls are doing more damage to Young Thug's reputation than anything else. The heat around Young Thug only continues to grow as more leaked jail calls spark new accusations, online debates, and family defenses. It started when someone took a jab at Thug, saying they could never trust a man who wore makeup and dresses. Thug shot back, reminding everyone that he was the one who paid for lawyer Brian Steele to defend others, even covering the costs himself. Shortly after, his sister stepped in, defending him publicly. She argued that people only call Thug a snitch because they know he can't return to Atlanta right now. In her words, the streets are clicked up against him for that reason alone. But while some family members stood firm in defending Young Thug, DJ Academics was busy piecing together a bigger picture. To him, the real question wasn't just what was said in those leaked audios, it was who leaked them and why now. Academics suggested that these recordings didn't appear out of thin air. In his view, the timing was too perfect to be random. He pointed the finger toward Ghana's camp, hinting that they had been sitting on these tapes for a while. If true, then the release wasn't just an accident, it was a carefully calculated move. Think about it, Ghana's name had been dragged through the mud ever since the YSL case exploded. Fans, bloggers, and rappers all tossed around the snitch label, and even though Ghana tried to move past it, the stigma stuck. So, if you're in Ghana's shoes, what's the one way to flip the script? You show the world that Young Thug, the man many accused you of betraying, had been betraying people himself. That's exactly how Academics framed it. He argued that Ghana's team dropped these tapes to expose a bigger truth, that Thug had been orchestrating a web of manipulation, turning allies against each other whenever it suited him. According to AK, the leaks were less about clearing Ghana's name and more about pulling Thug down from the pedestal that kept him untouchable in the eyes of many fans. And in a twisted way, it worked. Suddenly, the conversation shifted. Instead of everyone asking whether Ghana told on Thug, people started asking whether Thug had been setting up his own people for years. The spotlight moved. Academics called it a smart play, and it's hard to deny. In the court of public opinion, timing is everything. Ghana's camp knew that the longer the snitch narrative stayed alive, the harder it would be for him to rebuild his career. But if they could redirect the heat, even just a little, toward Thug, then maybe Ghana could breathe again. This isn't new in hip-hop. For decades, controlling the narrative has been just as important as the music. When beefs happen, when accusations fly, when careers are on the line, it's rarely about who's actually right or wrong. It's about who gets their side of the story out first, and who tells it the loudest. That's why leaks, interviews, and public statements carry so much weight. For Ghana, whose career nearly collapsed under the weight of being branded a snitch, this move was about survival. Every rapper knows once your reputation is tainted in the streets, you're fighting an uphill battle. By putting Thug's alleged disloyalty on display, Ghana's camp essentially said, if you're going to call my guy a rat, then you better look at Thug too. The brilliance of this strategy is that it taps into a bigger truth about how fans consume drama. Most listeners don't actually care about the fine print of plea deals or court transcripts. They care about the story, the headlines, and the gossip. If you give them something juicier than the last scandal, they'll move on quickly. Academics knew this well, which is why he praised the timing of the leaks. But, of course, not everyone bought it. For some die-hard Thug supporters, this was just another distraction. They argued that even if Thug had manipulated people in the past, it didn't change the fact that Ghana had taken a plea deal while Thug sat in jail. To them, that was the ultimate betrayal, and no leaked audio could erase it. On the flip side, Ghana's defenders latched onto the tapes like proof of what they had been saying all along, that Ghana wasn't the villain in this story. They argued that Thug's empire was built on shaky ground, where loyalty was conditional and relationships could be cut off at any time. So who's right? Honestly, it depends on who you ask. And that's the bigger point academics was making. This entire debate is less about truth and more about perception. Fans aren't really weighing evidence like jurors in a courtroom, they're choosing sides based on who they like more. If you've been a Thug fan for years, you'll find a way to defend him. If you're rooting for Ghana's comeback, you'll point to the leaks as justification. That's the genius and the tragedy of hip-hop's snitching culture. The rules aren't written in stone. They shift depending on whose music you're vibing with, whose personality you connect with, and who's winning in the moment. Academics broke it down bluntly. The first rule of deciding if somebody snitched is, do we like them? That's it. If the answer is yes, then fans will spin any excuse to protect their favorite artist. If the answer is no, then the label of rat sticks forever. In that sense, Ghana's camp didn't just leak tapes, they played into the psychology of the culture. They gave fans a new narrative, one where Ghana wasn't the only one under suspicion. Suddenly, Thug wasn't just the victim, he was part of the mess. And that's why academics called it a smart move. Whether you believe Ghana's team orchestrated the leaks or not, the outcome is undeniable. The spotlight has shifted, at least for now. The streets are debating Thug's role just as much as they're debating Ghana's, and in the world of rap, that's as close to a win as you can get. Because in the end, perception is power. And in this battle of narratives, whoever controls the story controls the game. Not long after the first leaks, more recordings began to hit the internet, and they only added fuel to the fire. In one clip, young Thug could be heard throwing serious shade at some of the biggest names in the industry. He went as far as to call Quality Control's boss, Pierre P. Thomas, a rat. For many listeners, that was a bombshell. P has long been seen as a powerful executive who helped build artists like Lil Baby and the Migos into household names. For Thug to label him in that way showed just how messy the behind-the-scenes politics had gotten. What made it even more complicated was Thug's mention of Lil Baby. Instead of keeping it vague, Thug criticized Baby for continuing to work with P despite the accusations. For fans, it was a shocking moment because Lil Baby and Thug have shared a close relationship over the years. Thug was one of the first to give Baby a real shot in rap, even supporting him when others didn't. To hear disappointment in his voice now showed a crack in that bond. But Thug's leaked words weren't all about calling people out. In another conversation, he spoke to 21 Savage and expressed a different kind of frustration. Thug told him he wasn't happy with how rappers immediately started clowning Ghana the moment he got out of jail. He admitted he felt let down by the way the industry handled the situation, saying that piling on and mocking someone online wasn't the right move. This moment caught a lot of people off guard. After all, Thug himself had distanced from Ghana, and many believed he was leading the charge in branding Ghana a snitch. But hearing him speak with genuine disappointment about the internet circus suggested something more complicated. It was as if Thug was torn on one hand, angry about what he believed Ghana had done, but on the other, unwilling to fully endorse the wave of online bullying that came after. The new clips showed two sides of Thug, the ruthless figure unafraid to label industry power players as rats, and the man quietly admitting he didn't agree with the clowning of someone he once called family. Both sides only deepened the mystery of where Thug truly stands. Even so, Thug wasn't happy about these leaks. He lashed out on Instagram, firing shots at people he believed were fake, accusing them of flexing houses they couldn't afford and faking success online. At the same time, another leaked interrogation appeared to show Thug bringing up Pee Wee Roscoe's name to investigators. This fueled more chatter online, with fans clowning him and labeling him a snitch. The conversation only got louder after WAC 100, academics, and others went live to react. They claimed this wasn't new, that Thug had been suspected of cooperating for years, pointing out how several of his past gun cases seemed to disappear without explanation. Even 6ix9ine chimed in, calling out the hypocrisy. He said that when he snitched, the whole industry came for him, but when Thug gets exposed, rappers stay silent. Meanwhile, fans questioned why Ghana is still signed to YSL if he really snitched. Academics explained it simply: money. Thug is still running his label from behind bars and continues to earn from Ghana's music. Cutting him loose would mean cutting off revenue. In the industry, it's business first, loyalty second. Even if contracts get shifted around later, the label won't give up its cut of the profits. But Woody, another figure tied to the case, warned people like Lil Baby and 21 Savage not to stand too close to Thug. He claimed Thug's leaks and mounting scandals would only drag them down. All of this leaves one big question hanging in the air. Has young Thug been snitching all along? Some believe the evidence is undeniable, while others argue he's being framed by people with something to gain. What's certain is that every new leak chips away at his reputation, and the longer this goes on, the harder it will be for him to reclaim control of his name, his label, and his career. YSL Woody has been speaking out, and his words are making waves. He tried to explain that people keep misunderstanding him. For example, he defended Ghana, saying, "Leave Ghana alone, he didn't do anything wrong." But his message wasn't landing because, in his view, a lot of folks in this game aren't who they pretend to be. Woody also warned others to stay out of the drama. He called out 21 Savage, telling him not to get caught up in something that could ruin his career. His reasoning was simple: a man with nothing to lose will drag everyone else down with him. Woody insisted that no one had ever forced him to make choices, and he stood on that. Still, Savage didn't take the warning lightly. He unfollowed young Thug shortly after. The real reason Woody says he's speaking now is because he's lived through this before with Thug. According to him, Thug never even paid for his lawyer when he got in trouble. Back then, Woody defended Thug out of loyalty, but he now admits that it was because he was manipulated. Looking back, he realizes he should never have been in that interrogation room without legal help. With all the money Thug had, Woody felt like he should have taken care of his people. But in the same breath, Woody admits he used to excuse it, convincing himself that it wasn't Thug's responsibility. He reflects on how blind he was at the time. He didn't like a lot of what was going on in YSL, and even now, he still doesn't respect certain things. And he's not alone. Other former associates, like Rallo, also claim Thug manipulated them. Rallo even admitted he lied to the feds to protect Thug, but instead of gratitude, Thug told Lil Baby to cut ties with him. Rallo now mocks Thug, saying he'll soon face the same downfall that he and Ghana went through. This behavior, they say, is part of a pattern. Whenever someone crosses Thug, he cuts them off and warns other rappers not to work with them. It happened with Ghana too. Behind the scenes, Thug reportedly sent messages labeling Ghana a snitch and urged artists like Lil Durk and Lil Baby to distance themselves. Even if rappers didn't publicly denounce Ghana, many quietly kept their distance. Thug eventually fired back at these accusations. He argued there's a difference between making a mistake and outright telling on people. For example, he admitted once saying that YSL had sold Lil Wayne some items, not to incriminate anyone, but to prove they weren't beefing. He contrasted that with others who, according to him, flat out told on real crimes. Still, the culture remains divided, and this division only grows louder as more leaks and accusations surface. DJ Academics, one of the loudest voices in the hip-hop commentary space, summed it up in a way that many people quietly agree with but rarely admit. He pointed out that whether someone gets labeled a snitch often has less to do with what they actually said or did in court, and more to do with how popular they are in the moment. If people like the artist, the rules suddenly bend. Fans will rush to defend them, creating excuses that sound almost convincing. You'll hear arguments like, nobody went to jail because of it, or he just tricked the cops, that's not really snitching. In other words, the line between loyalty and betrayal gets blurry when it comes to someone fans admire. They'll spin any narrative that protects their favorite rapper's image. On the flip side, if the audience doesn't like the person, or if they're already seen as an outsider, the same actions get treated like the ultimate crime. If an unpopular rapper takes a plea deal or cooperates in any way, people waste no time branding them a rat. In that case, no amount of explanation or context matters. The snitch label sticks permanently, and once it does, it's almost impossible to shake off in hip-hop culture. But here's the catch, most regular fans don't even live by these street codes. As academics bluntly put it, civilians are not out here moving weight, ducking indictments, or living under gang rules. They're simply fans of the music. They go to work, they stream albums, they watch interviews, and they follow gossip online. Whether an artist snitched or not rarely affects their listening habits. To them, the music is entertainment, not a code of honor. That's why academics argued that the snitching debate often says more about perception than about facts. It's not really about what was said in the courtroom, but about how people feel about the artist. If you've been rocking with Young Thug for years, you'll likely defend him no matter what evidence leaks. If you want to see Gunna win after being dragged through the mud, you'll take any excuse to clear his name. The truth becomes flexible depending on who you root for. This is where hip-hop gets tricky. The culture claims to value loyalty above everything, but in reality, loyalty often shifts with fame, success, and fan attachment. People don't want to lose their heroes, so they bend the rules to keep them. Others are quick to tear down rivals, so they amplify every rumor to make the other side look guilty. At the end of the day, academics' point hits hard. The first rule of deciding if somebody snitched is simply, do we like them? If the answer is yes, fans will protect them at all costs. If the answer is no, the streets and the internet won't ever let them live it down. But things get messy when old allegations resurface. Thug himself was once accused of cooperating back in 2015, tied to the shooting of Lil Wayne's tour bus. Although Wayne never testified, the bus driver did, describing how bullets tore into the bus that night. Reports say Thug mentioned Pee Wee Roscoe's name to investigators, raising questions about whether he had snitched back then. This entire cycle of accusations reignited recently when Gunna dropped what would be his last album under YSL. Thug dismissed the project publicly, sparking a back and forth where Gunna clapped back, saying he no longer messed with Thug. Their fallout was sealed. Gunna even covered up his YSL tattoos, while Thug laughed about it in the studio. Meanwhile, Thug has his own battles. He's under heavy probation, with strict rules about what he can say in his music and who he can associate with. Any slip-up, even calling out a prosecutor on Instagram, puts him at risk of going back to jail. Prosecutors are watching closely, waiting for him to violate terms. Academics summed it up best: Thug may be out, but he's far from free. His probation is essentially a trap, and one wrong move could land him back behind bars. Adding fuel to the fire, Wack 100 claims he has hours of interrogation footage of Gunna allegedly telling on Thug, though the tapes haven't surfaced. Charleston White, on the other hand, praised Gunna for cooperating, saying he'd have done the same thing. At the end of the day, the snitching debate continues, with fans, rappers, and commentators all divided. But one thing is clear, the YSL drama isn't just about music anymore, it's about loyalty, survival, and who can outlast the storm.